The San Antonio Spurs are off to a 9-8 start. They've been a very enjoyable team to watch offensively, and there could be a multitude of reasons why this team is somewhat exceeding expectations this year. But I think the main reason is the future Hall of Famer they signed in the offseason, Chris Paul. And he's got a rich history of turning teams around. In 2011, when he was on the Hornets, they went 46-36. They were 19th in the NBA in offensive rating when he was a 25-year-old. In the 2011 offseason, he was traded to the LA Clippers, and the 2012 Hornets ended up going 21-45. They were 25 games worse after trading away Chris Paul, and they dropped from 19th in offensive rating to 28th in offensive rating. The year before Chris Paul got to Los Angeles, they went 32-50 and were 22nd in the NBA in offensive rating. He gets traded to the Clippers, and then they end up going 40-26 and go from 22nd in offensive rating to 4th in offensive rating. We know about Chris Paul's success with the Lob City Clips in 2017 with the Clippers. His final year there at the age of 31, they go 51-31. They were 5th in offensive rating. Then he gets traded to Houston, and the Clippers in 2018 without Chris Paul go 42-40. They were 9 games worse and dropped 3 spots to 8th in offensive rating in the NBA. The year before Chris Paul got to the Rockets, James Harden finished runner-up to Russell Westbrook in MVP voting. The Rockets went 55-27, finished 2nd in offensive rating, and you're probably like, how could they get much better than that? Well, they ended up winning 10 more games after trading for Chris Paul in the 2018 offseason. They go 65-17, and they go from 2nd in offensive rating to 1st in offensive rating in Chris Paul's age 32 season and his first one in Houston. In 2019, the Oklahoma City Thunder went 49-33. It was Paul George and Russell Westbrook's last year in Oklahoma City. Chris Paul gets traded there, and the Thunder only finished 5 games worse, but actually 1 spot better in offensive rating in that 2020 season. Chris Paul was 34 years old, and then he gets traded to Phoenix in the 2020 offseason. In 2021, the Thunder go 22-50 and finish dead last in the NBA in offensive rating. The 2020 Suns, the year before Chris Paul got there, finished 34-39, 12th in offensive rating, and in 2021, Chris Paul's first year in Phoenix, 51-21, 5th in offensive rating, and they go to the NBA Finals. The 2023 Warriors went 44-38, finished 8th in offensive rating. Chris Paul gets traded there, and they go 46-36, finishing 2 games better with CP3. And this Spurs team went 22-60 last year. They were 26th in offensive rating. They didn't have a true point guard to develop any of their young core, especially the best young asset in the NBA, Victor Wembanyama, and the Spurs are about 6 spots better in terms of offensive rating to start off this season. And Chris Paul is having a much better offensive season individually than he did last year in Golden State. This year, through 17 games, Chris Paul is averaging 10.7 points, 3.8 rebounds, 8.5 assists a night. He's shooting 46% from the field, 38% from 3 on 5.2 threes per night, the highest since his 2019 season with the Rockets, and he has yet to miss a free throw so far. And the Spurs have had a bunch of different point guards over the last 5 years. In 2019, it was Patty Mills. 2020 to 2022 was DeJounte Murray. Then they traded him to Atlanta in that 2022 offseason, and it's been Trey Jones and Jeremy Sohan over the last 2 years. And Chris Paul is everything the San Antonio Spurs needed when developing aforementioned Victor Wembanyama, as well as Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, and others. This year, the San Antonio Spurs ranked number 1 in the NBA in assist percentage at 71.4%. Chris Paul's in the 98th percentile in assists per game this year. He's 89th percentile in steals per game as well. And just his involvement of developing this young core around him has been a joy to watch this year. Jeremy Sohan is shooting 56% from the field on shot attempts from Chris Paul. Malachi Branham is shooting 56% from the field as well. Zach Collins at 55%. Harrison Barnes at 46%. Wemby is shooting 50% on 2-point field goals from Chris Paul when assisted, and 37% from 3. And I think Chris Paul has also done a great job mentoring and developing Stephon Castle right behind him. Stephon Castle got off to somewhat of a slower start this year with the Spurs, but he's been great so far as of late, and that's got to help being under the wing of one of the greatest point guards of all time. And just having this floor general that could slow down this offense and let plays develop, but also just making the right extra pass, not trying to do too much individually offensively, and his main goal is just getting his teammates involved in Chris Paul and San Antonio. And I think they've been one of the more enjoyable teams to watch this season because of Victor Wembanyama, obviously, and what he can do at his height and at his age. But I don't know if Wemby takes this development with Chris Paul this year. We saw the frustration that Wemby had with just getting the ball last year. Either it was in transition or in the half court or in the post, and Chris Paul is finding him. They were trying to run out some Jeremy Sohan at the 1 experiment last year. It didn't really work out whatsoever, and that hindered Jeremy Sohan's development. And before he got hurt this year, he was having the best year of his career. Sohan was averaging 15.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, 3 assists a night, shooting 51% from the field, and just getting higher quality shots than he was getting last year now that he's a complementary piece and not trying to be the lead initiator on this team. I think the Spurs did a good job finding Julian Champagnie a couple years ago, and I think he's been great as an off-ball player to Chris Paul this year. He's averaging 11 points, 5 rebounds, and shooting 43% from the field, 34% from 3, and 83% from the line. Not bad for a former G Leaguer. I mentioned before that Stephon Castle got off to a slow start, but it has been great over his last 9 games. He's averaging 15 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and shooting 44% from the field, 35% from 3, and 79% from the line, getting to the free throw line a bunch more as well. And the Spurs this year are 8.7 points better per 100 possessions when Chris Paul is on the floor. They have 113 offensive rating when he's playing for them, and they have 108 offensive rating when he is off the floor. They're also slightly better as a defensive team as well when CP3 is playing, as their defensive rating is 110 when he's on the floor, and when he's off, it's at 114. Malachi Branham is taking much higher quality shots this year. He's shooting 43% from 3, 47% from the field, and 85% from the line. And I think the Spurs are figuring out the foundation of this team going forward. And I'm not sure if Chris Paul is going to eventually get traded at the deadline. Maybe the Spurs suffer an injury or two, and maybe they start sliding in the Western Conference standings, which is a very competitive conference. And maybe they look to trade the veteran. He is 39 years old. He's on a 1-year deal. It would be silly for them not to take on a draft pick if they got offered one for him at the deadline. And I'm a huge CP3 fan. I really want to see him compete for one last title. The closest we got was in 2021 with the Phoenix Suns, and I feel like there's a bunch of teams in this league that would trade for Chris Paul to try to go out and make a championship run. How would he look on the Cavs, the Celtics, the Magic, the Knicks, the Heat, the Bucks in the Eastern Conference, or in the West? I mean, it's an unlikely reunion in Golden State. OKC would be fun. Houston, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Suns, or the Mavericks. Any of these teams that have a realistic goal at winning an NBA title this year, I want to see one of them do it with Chris Paul, but who knows? Maybe at this point, Chris Paul is going to lead the San Antonio Spurs into the playoffs and get Wemby's first playoff series under his belt. Same with Stephon Castle as a rookie, the first playoff series for their younger wings like Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, Jeremy Sohan, and Devin Vassell. And I'm not sure how many more years CP3 is going to do this, because we thought he could have been washed at the end of last year's season with Golden State. Got off to somewhat of a slow start this year in San Antonio, but he has been playing like a top 20 point guard in the NBA this year, and this is year number 20 for Chris Paul. I know we talked about LeBron's longevity and same with Kevin Durant, and it's more rare for a smaller guard to age well in this league. Just history shows that they fall off at a quicker rate than some of these wings over time, but Chris Paul is still giving you productive play when he's going to be 40 years old at the end of this year's season. Let me know what you guys think about Chris Paul this season. Do you think he's going to finish the year on the San Antonio Spurs? And are you noticing an immediate impact that he is making as the Spurs point guard, different from what their point guard rotation was last year? Drop a thumbs up if you guys did enjoy. Let me know in the comments any other player evaluations you'd like to see throughout the course of the season, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.